The Pleistocene feline Smilodon is the archetypical saber-tooth, but saber-teeth predate even the dinosaurs. Predators from the Permian period, called Gorgonopsians, are commonly cited as the earliest saber-toothed predators, but they coexisted alongside another, more obscure saber-toothed marvel. Named Tiarajudens eccentricus, its enlarged, canine-like teeth matched those of the largest Gorgonopsians in absolute size, and were proportionately much longer, reaching a length comparable to those of the iconic saber-toothed cats. Despite their similarities, Tiarajudens was actually a herbivore, and quite a sophisticated one for its time. It lived during the middle of the Permian Period, the period which saw the initial emergence of recognizable terrestrial ecosystems. Although true mammals did not yet exist, Tiarajudens was a member of the larger clade they belonged to, Synapsida. Indeed, most of the abundant large animals during this time were synapsids, with reptiles only overtaking them in prominence during the Mesozoic era. While the synapsids from the early Permian are easy to mistake for reptiles, by Tiarajudens' time, most synapsids already looked rather mammal-like. Tiarajudens is currently only known from a single definitive specimen, which originates from the Sirinha member of the Brazilian Rio do Rastro Formation. Its full scientific name means eccentric Tiaraju-tooth, Tiaraju referring to a village close to where the fossils were found. The village is in turn named after Saber-Teethe, a member of the indigenous Guarani tribe and a leader of a rebellion against both Spanish and Portuguese imperialists. The dense local vegetation in the Rio do Rastro Formation makes it difficult to identify fossils in the area, and the site the Tiarajudens holotype was found in was only discovered using satellite imagery. There are few mid to late Permian fossil-bearing formations which aren't either in Eastern Europe or part of the South African Kauru supergroup, so this saber-toothed proto-mammal provides a rare glimpse into what the rest of the world was like during the second half of the Permian period. Tiarajudens is a member of the synapsid subclade Anomodontia. Anomodonts were herbivores with short snouts and large orbits. Early members of the clade were typically small and gracile, but members of the derived and highly successful Anomodont subclade Dicynodontia had a bulkier build. They range from small, gopher-like species such as Diectodon to the elephant-sized Lesowickia. Although they had replaced most of their teeth with a beak, Dicynodonts typically retained a pair of large tusks. Tiarajudens is an outlier among its relatives, and not just because of its saber teeth. While still short, its snout was much deeper than those of other anomodonts, which resulted in a dome-like shape. Additionally, although it was tiny when compared to the largest animals of its day, the Tiarajudens holotype skull is over 22 centimeters long, twice the length of most other anomodonts outside of Dicynodontia, the only major exception being its sister genus, Anomocephalus. Likewise, the available postcranial material indicates Tiarajudens had a heavier, Dicynodont-like build. Combined with their tusk-like teeth, it would at first seem obvious that Tiarajudens was closely related to the Dicynodonts, but phylogenetic analyses have consistently placed it in a basal position within Anomodontia, so their similarities appear to be the result of convergent evolution. However, their enlarged, caniniform teeth may not be a complete coincidence either, as the most basal anomodont, Saber-Toothed, already had enlarged canines. From these, it wouldn't have been hard for Tiarajudens and the Dicynodonts to independently develop their more dramatic dentition. In any event, there are considerable differences between Dicynodont tusk and Tiarajudens sabers. Whereas Dicynodont tusks were robust and circular, Tiarajudens' massive teeth were thin and compressed on the sides. They also had much longer roots, and were coated in enamel, something lacking in many Dicynodonts. This made the teeth more resistant to damage, but prevented them from being able to grow continuously. Any damage to Tiarajudens' teeth would have been permanent. Something its teeth shared with Dicynodont tusk is that they were both placed much further back in the skull than the saber-teeth found in all other synapsids, including mammals. As mentioned earlier, Tiarajudens' teeth matched the size of the saber-teeth of the largest Gorgonopsian, in Austransevia, but were on a considerably smaller animal. The saber-teeth are over 60% of the length of Tiarajudens' skull, and 120% of the skull's already exceptional height. Given their more rearward placement, this would have made it very difficult for Tiarajudens to fully open its mouth in the same manner as saber-toothed cats such as Smilodon or Homotherium. However, while Tiarajudens would have struggled to bite with them, the sabers were positioned so that almost the entire tooth was visible when the mouth was closed. As for what these long teeth were used for, it has been suggested that the tusk of the distantly related Dicynodonts were used for digging. However, Tiarajudens' thin, saber teeth were not well suited for such work, and they lacked the extensive wear that would have been produced from such activity. Another possibility is that they were used as a sort of cutting tool when feeding. However, as will be elaborated on later in the video, Tiarajudens is thought to have specialized in consuming high-fiber plants, which would have produced extensive wear that is, once again, absent on its sabers. The primary hypothesis regarding the function of Tiarajudens' saber teeth is that they were used to attract mates. Modern tusk deer, such as muntjacs and musk deer, have been cited as analogs. They use their unusual teeth as both visual display devices and during fights against rival males. While their tusks are too long to bite with, they are so long that they can still be used to stab each other. Tiarajudens' saber-like teeth were even longer, and therefore even better suited for such behavior. Still, among modern tusk deer, males only use their tusks to create shallow wounds, and most contests are resolved without resorting to violence at all. Additionally, Tiarajudens' teeth lack the serrations which enabled Gorgonopsians, saber-toothed cats, and similarly saber-toothed predators to easily slice through flesh. While blood was likely occasionally drawn, Tiarajudens had clearly evolved to avoid escalation. Still, while such fights were likely uncommon, they were the result of a major evolutionary shift that was taking place during Tiarajudens' time. The synapsids from the early Permian had been ectotherms. Their metabolisms were too low to support high-energy activities such as fights over mates, so they instead relied on display devices, with sails being the most iconic example. Tiarajudens and the rest of Anomodontia instead belonged to the more mammal-like subclade Therapsida. While their metabolic rates were not on par with most mammals, they were much more active than the basal, cold-blooded synapsids of the early Permian, which allowed the Therapsids to rapidly replace them. Tiarajudens wasn't the only early Therapsid to engage in modern, active contest. Some Dicynodonts are also thought to have used their tusk in intra-Pacific battles, and members of a different branch of Therapsida, Tapinocephalidae, are believed to have engaged in headbutting contest. Much like the modern tusk deer, Tiarajudens could have used its sabers to defend itself from predators, but this was likely a distant, secondary function. Somewhat ironically, a number of the local carnivores, the Antiosaurids, had enlarged fangs that may have also evolved in part to battle intra-Pacific rivals. Tiarajudens' incisors were much less noteworthy than its eye-catching saber teeth, as they were the same leaf-shaped teeth that have convergently evolved within numerous herbivorous lineages. In contrast, the teeth behind the sabers were more unusual. They were densely packed molars, which, given their extensive wear, were used to grind hard, high-fiber plants. Notably, those in the upper jaw were located not in the maxilla, but in the palate. Some basal synapsids, such as Adaphosaurus, also had palantal teeth, but theirs were much simpler, and did not replace their maxillary teeth. The teeth in the lower jaw of the only Tiarajudens specimen are not preserved, but they are present in the holotype of its sister taxon, Anomocephalus. It had an identical arrangement of palantal teeth in the upper jaw, but its molars in the lower jaw had a more traditional placement in the mandible. These two sets of molars were able to efficiently occlude with each other. Not only would this have enabled Anomocephalus to chew very tough material, but this is currently the only known example of palantal teeth that were able to occlude with mandibular or maxillary teeth. Given their very close relationship to each other, it is thought Tiarajudens had the same tooth arrangement as Anomocephalus. Indeed, Tiarajudens and Anomocephalus may actually be one and the same. Like Tiarajudens, Anomocephalus is only known from a single specimen, a skull in its case. While it lacks saber teeth, a re-examination of the fossils conducted in 2015 found that all the other overlapping elements between these two supposed sister taxa are otherwise identical. The only other possible exception is Anomocephalus's round incisors, which lack leaf-like serrations. However, the authors considered this to simply be the result of advanced tooth wear. As impressive as Tiarajudens sabers were, their absence may not be sufficient to warrant a genus-level distinction between the two taxa. Additionally, given their proposed function, the saber teeth may have only been present in males, as in tusk deer, so what has been called Tiarajudens and Anomocephalus could actually just be sexual morphs of a single species. Since Anomocephalus was named first, its name would have priority. These two anomodonts have yet to be officially cinemized, which is likely because the team which reanalyzed the Tiarajudens and Anomocephalus specimens was the same team which named Tiarajudens in the first place, and they may have been reluctant to reclassify it as a mere junior synonym. Biased or not, their basis for keeping them separate is pretty shaky. Only males have tusks among their cited behavioral analogs for Tiarajudens, and the tusks of some dicynodonts have also been found to be sexually dimorphic. In light of this, trying to use the absence of saber teeth as a diagnostic trait is questionable at best, and the hypothesis that they were a sexually dimorphic trait should arguably be the default assumption when dealing with prehistoric anomodonts. Finally, teeth as derived as Tiarajudens sabers would not have simply evolved overnight, and as they became longer, the shape of the skull would have probably needed to change shape to accommodate them. Since Anomocephalus and Tiarajudens skulls are indistinguishable besides the presence or absence of saber teeth, this supports them merely being sexual morphs of a single taxon. The authors also justified their decision to continue classifying them as separate taxa on the fact that the holotypes were found in different localities. This is also questionable. The Anomocephalus holotype originates from the Tapanocephalus assemblage zone of the South African Karoo supergroup, which, just like the locality Tiarajudens was found in, dates to the end of the Middle Permian. Furthermore, by this point, the world's continents had already combined into Pangaea, and South Africa and Brazil were close enough that it is reasonable to expect a degree of faunal overlap. Indeed, the large, tuskless, late Permian dicynodont Endotheodon has been found in both regions. Since the Anomocephalus specimen lacks any postcranial material, it is conceivable that future discoveries could find enough differences to justify placing the Brazilian material within a separate species, or even genus, but that simply doesn't match the evidence currently available. If nothing else, Tiarajudens could be retained as a common name for Anomocephalus. The environments both specimens were found in had once been arid floodplains. The largest herbivores and carnivores during the Middle Permian were Dinocephalians. Those found in the South African Tapanocephalus assemblage zone include the namesake head-butting Tapanocephalus, the long-snouted hippo-like Yonkeria, and the fanged Antiosaurus, the largest predator of the entire Permian period. The small burrowing dicynodont Diinctodon also inhabited South Africa during this time, and these anomodonts would survive for the entirety of the remaining Permian period. The fossils found in Brazil are broadly similar to those found in South Africa, but only a few are diagnostic enough to assign to a genus or species. Among these was another fellow anomodont, the dicynodont Rastodon. Uniquely among the clade, its tusks pointed forwards and seemed to have been used to crop its food. The region was also inhabited by a smaller relative of Antiosaurus, the 3-meter-long Antiosaurid Pamphonius. Although reptiles wouldn't become the dominant terrestrial animals until the following Triassic period, synapsids like Tiarajudens didn't have a monopoly on large body size. Among these trailblazing reptiles was the medium-sized herbivore Provelosaurus. It was a heavily armored Periosaur, a clade of reptiles restricted to the Permian Period. Tiarajudens was a standout among the prehistoric proto-mammals. While not the deadly predator many may initially mistake it for, it possessed unconventional, yet highly efficient adaptations for herbivory, especially by the standards of the Middle Permian. It was also an early adopter of the active, high-energy mating rituals that became common behavior among modern animals. Whether properly called Tiarajudens or Anomocephalus, this saber-toothed anomodont was a truly remarkable creature. Thank you for watching. The subject of this video was chosen from a poll by my supporters on YouTube memberships. YouTube briefly demonetized my channel, and while the matter has fortunately been resolved, I've decided to switch from YouTube memberships to Patreon. I urge those of you still subscribed to my YouTube memberships page to move to my Patreon, link in the description. It will also have polls to determine the topics of future videos, much like this one. If you enjoyed it, please remember to hit the like button, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Finally, be sure to have a great day.